Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court has ordered today that election commissioners be appointed by the President of India on the advice of a particular panel until a law is made in this regard about how they should be appointed. This just stirred up a controversy on social media and in different circles about whether the move and the constitution of this panel is a case of judicial overreach. To understand the wording and the prevailing position in law about how election commissioners are to be appointed, we have with us Advocate Shashank Shekhar Jha. He's a practitioner in the Supreme Court of India. Namaste, I am Advocate Shreya Agarwal and I'm your host for today's Chitti Media's Current Affairs show. I welcome you to the show, Shashankji.
Namaste, Shreyaji. Thank you so much for inviting me on this show.
It is very good to have you here with us. So I'll straight away begin with the questions. The first question is, of course, that can you sum up the verdict for us about what the Supreme Court's Constitution bench has said today?
Okay, so election commission, which is responsible for holding elections for general assembly, say Lok Sabha, and for state assemblies as well as lower, bypoll elections. So their appointment till date was a prerogative of the central government because they were appointed by the president, and president act on aid and advice of the central government, say senior cabinet, that is headed by the prime minister of India. Now Supreme Court through its judgment has given a chance that there will be a say of opposition, leader of opposition of Lok Sabha, as well as sitting chief justice of India. Now, there are two takes, one positive and one negative. The positive take, now everyone in this country of 1.4 billion will expect that for any such appointment to a such higher post, there should be some transparency, be it election commission's appointment, be it say judicial appointment, etc., etc. Now, so to bring a new reform in that is definitely welcoming. However, to include the Chief Justice of India and in such a committee, and be it for a ad hoc basis only till the central government brings a law, because the order says that till the central government brings a law, or for the parliament brings a law for the appointment of the election commission, there will be a new setup where prime minister, leader of opposition, and chief justice of India will together appoint someone to be in the election commission. Now, the problem is that Chief Justice of India, or for that point, any judge of the Supreme Court and say High Court, are appointed directly by the collegial system of the Supreme Court, headed by CGI and two senior most judges and two more. So they are so for that point, five senior most judges of Supreme Court. So if they are not elected directly and there is no transparency in their own appointment, it is really shocking to see that they want their say in the appointment of election commission, who is responsible for holding literally the fair elections and the largest fair elections across the globe, and which has been really successful in such a way that different countries are taking inspiration from our election system as to how do we conduct such big election in such smooth way. So I guess that was the negative side of this particular order, where Supreme Court's CGI has been given a say in the appointment of election commission. And yes, there is one more thing which I would definitely like to say, Shreyaji. President acts on aid and advice of the prime minister and senior cabinet. This is what constitution says. Now if you include CGI and leader of opposition there, that means you are saying that that means you are saying that president should not act on aid and advice of the prime minister and senior cabinet, but should act on aid and advice of the leader of opposition, who is the losing party, as well as the CGI, who is not a elected representative. So that means you are defying the very constitution you have taken the authority to protect, because constitution also says separation of power, and in this I guess Supreme Court has failed in its duty to protect. I hope that there will be no contempt case against me, but I dare to say that this was very unfortunate where judiciary was involved in such process if constitution has not given them that opportunity.
Correct. This was indeed one of my questions that till date the Supreme Court has I would say almost possessively guarded the mechanism through which judges are appointed, that is the collegium system. And for them to now get into, although it is within their powers to, but for them to pass a verdict of the nature they have, is this in particular not a case of judicial overreach? Does this not disturb separation of powers, which is part of the basic structure of the Constitution? Uh, I also want to know that, currently, is there any provision in the Constitution about the appointment of election commissioners? Because if the Supreme Court is saying that a new law has to be brought about, or until a law is brought about in this regard, that means that currently there's nothing there. Is that true?
Yes, constitution is very clear. To bring a law, the power is with the parliament. To struck down a law on the basis of its constitutional validity, that power is with the Supreme Court of India, or for that point, high courts, or respective high courts also. Now, in this case, Supreme Court extended its power. They did not struck down a provision. They actually added a provision, and that is contrary to what the power has been granted to them by the Constitution of India. So we need to understand that now, from being the from being the guardian of the constitution, or a safeguard of the constitution, now they are trying to dictate the constitution. I guess that is worrisome. See, once we have seen the political dictatorship, I hope that we may not have a different type of dictatorship now.
Actually, Shashankji, thank you for addressing that point. But my question is, in fact, that currently, is there any provision in the Constitution which governs how election commissioners are to be appointed? And does the Constitution give any process for their appointment? And what are the powers, if any, of the Supreme Court or the CJI given in the Constitution
So
above
see,
the for the appointment of election commissioners?
okay, in Constitution of India, I guess in Article 324 to 329, so 324 to 329, that is part 15 of elections of the Constitution. It has been cleared that how and what are the process for the appointment of the election commissions, etc. So it says that uh, superintendence, direction, and control of elections in an election commission consisting of chief election commissioner and such number. So it says about number, and that says that president may from time to time fix that how and what to do. So now it has clearly stated that president makes those appointment on its own, but it has also been cleared in the power of president that president will act on an aid and advice of the prime minister and the senior cabinet. So there is no specific mechanism to that aspect. Now, to your question, we will have to go to history. Now, while drafting of the constitution, this question came as to how to have the election commissioner's role, or as to who will appoint. So, Bhimrao Ambedkar, Baba Sahib Ambedkar, in 1949 in Constituent Assembly has said, and I quote, the whole election machinery should be in hands of a central election commission, which alone would be entitled to issue directives to returning officers, polling officers, and others. Now, why I quoted this is for the fact that, see, president appoints election commission or election commissioners, but then even president do not have any role over that, or the entire process of the the elections. Now they are an independent body with their own power in hands, and we have seen in past how election commission has actually used their power to ease in the process of elections, and to have a free and fair elections, because every time there is a possibility that ruling government, be it state or center, will try to utilize their own power. But I guess election commission was fair, responsible in dealing or handling those things. And in cases where election commission failed, court came into picture, and that example is during the election of Indira Gandhi. before emergency, when actually court came and nullified her Lok Sabha election in Raebareli. So we need to understand that, you know, those are separation of powers which was guaranteed by the Constituent Assembly. And I guess if there is any basic structure, because basic structure is not defined, Supreme Court in its Keshwan and Bharti case has said that there is a basic structure which we will decide every time. But if there is a basic structure, that one thing is very clear, that the separation of power is very clear. President is the head of the government. President will act on aid and advice of Prime Minister and the senior cabinet. Judiciary will be independent. Judiciary will act on, but judiciary will give advice to the president if required. So these are certain things, and then there are independent bodies. For example, CAG. So Comptroller and Auditor General of India, or for that one Election Commission, or for that one Information Commissioner. So these are independent body. If every time we have a problem and say judiciary try to go inside that, there will be a problem. And problem is even more worse in this particular case is because of the fact that few years back, parliament with absolute majority, there was no difference between political parties, Congress, BJP, left, as in communist, and then local parties, and everyone unanimously voted for NJAC. That was for the appointment of the senior judges, for example, in high courts and Supreme Court. What was the provision there? The provision was that the head of that committee to appoint for the appointment of the senior judiciary will be headed by the CGI, and he will be the ex officio chairperson, and then there will be two other senior most judges of the Supreme Court, then there will be union minister for law, and then there will be two eminent persons, and those two eminent persons will be nominated by a committee consisting of CGI, Prime Minister, and LOP. And Supreme Court has nullified that order, nullified that parliamentary legislation which was from across from both houses complete majority. So if you have rejected a committee which included Prime Minister, LOP, and CGI, how can you have a committee now for someone else appointment with Prime Minister, CGI, and LOP? Because that is really shocking, and that makes a case here.
Absolutely. You've just pointed out something, so important and so beautifully. But can you tell me that why did it take so long? If at all there was any doubt about the independence of the election commission, about how it functions, then why has it taken the Supreme Court so long to intervene in the matter at all? If at all there were any doubts, then the law should have come about a long time ago, and even this verdict should have come out a long time ago. And till date, apart from the one case which you cited of Indira Gandhi's election, apart from that, have there been any instances where the process of election has been questioned about for any reason, about on grounds of lack of transparency?
Okay, so Constituent Assembly, which gave us the Constitution of India, had the provision of one election commissioner for this country. Now, but during ninth Lok Sabha election, say after say few years or few decades of the independence of this country, and so there was a problem, because if you have one person to check the entire election process of such a big country with such vast majority, then there will be chances that that person may be biased. And that is why we have a system where now we have three in so election commission consists of three people: one chief election commissioners, and then there will be two election commissioners as well along with him. And 2:1 majority will always be there, because then the benefit for of a three member committee versus a one member committee is that three member committee will have their own independent view. So even if one is biased, supposedly or allegedly, then also you will have this liberty in mind that three member will not look into one aspect only, or they will be by independent. Because, and that is why, because I am a practicing lawyer of Supreme Court, and you are yourself a lawyer, so we must be knowing that in Supreme Court also we generally have a system of division bench, where two judges generally presides over a case, and if there is a dispute or if there is a problem, then there is a full bench, that is three judges, and after three there is a constitution bench, that is five judges. So it's always odd number in order to maintain, sorry, even number, in order to have a proper rational view. So in case of a clash, there could be a divergent view, but a clear stance. So I don't think that this particular thing was required. However, in past also there were multiple political parties who have demanded this, and and for that point, BJP in 2002 have asked for this particular thing. But the problem is that this particular enactment or this particular order has been passed by the Supreme Court. And like I said, if Supreme Court has rejected one view in NJAC appointment, then how can they have the similar view in Election Commission's appointment? This could have brought by the Parliament. I would have not objected, but no, judiciary bringing this and putting themselves for the appointment also when their own appointment is questioned, I guess that is problematic. And to your second question, if there is any other incident apart from Indira Gandhi, yes, there are multiple examples. In every election, there are examples where there are people not satisfied with fairness of election commission, and then they approaches the constitutional court. In fact, there is a separate petition called election petition, and the very recent example I will give you was from West Bengal, where the sitting chief minister of West Bengal, Mamta Banerjee, lost her Nandigram seat, and the leader of opposition currently in West Bengal won that seat from the BJP's ticket, and Mamta Banerjee challenged that. So yes, they. So that is why I say High Court, High Courts, and Supreme Court are guardian of the Constitution, and they are to protect and see whether everything is going constitutionally. But now what they are doing is that they are trying to become the parliament in themselves, and that is wrong. And that is why I say this is the heights of judicial overreach.
You've just answered your next question, which was precisely this, that do you think that this is a case of judicial overreach? And do you think that the Supreme Court, because if anything has to be done beyond what is given in the Constitution, then a constitutional amendment has to be brought about, and there's a whole process for that. It cannot just be the Supreme Court itself cannot go beyond the provisions of the Constitution. And in this case, it does seem to have gone beyond its, beyond the powers which have been given it with respect to the appointment of the election commissioners. Moving on, I want to ask you that what does this exactly do to the powers of the president, which have been given in the constitution? Because over the years, so many cases, one sees that the president, who was supposed to have a different kind of role, has been pushed to just being a nominal head of the state. What exactly is this doing to the powers of the president? And when you talk about the fact that the president is supposed to act on the aid and the advice of the cabinet, then is this given anywhere in the constitution?
Very fairly asked question. See, the power of president, or for that point, the position of president is very clear in Article 123. It says that president is an executive head of this country and is empowered to exercise legislative powers, but in certain conditions. So that certain conditions. So initially what was happening is that if parliament, so if for example senior cabinet sends some proposal to the president could have said no. Could have suspended the parliament forever. President could have said that now this is a dictator country. That was the extent of power president used to enjoy before Indira Gandhi's regime. Now, in Indira Gandhi's regime, during emergency, Indira Gandhi curtailed that, and that is for the good. Indira Gandhi used one word, that president shall work on aid and advice of the prime minister. Shall word was inserted. So now, due to that, president cannot work otherwise, and that is good for two reasons. One, president is not elected by the people of India. People of India appoint or elects Lok Sabha members. Those Lok Sabha members plus Rajya Sabha members, the appointees, they choose prime minister because of the majority. Lok Sabha chooses, and that Lok Sabha's head, for example, the prime minister, he also enjoys to be the leader of Rajya Sabha also because he's the prime minister, and that prime minister then have a group of ministers under him, and those ministers and prime ministers collectively send proposals to the president for his signature, accent, or whatsoever. Now, president has a very limited say on that, and that is good for the democracy. President can say no, and I have certain reservations. Then cabinet or for that point parliament have to again think about that, and they can send it back to the president. So this way there is a democracy which has developed in this country. Now, what the Supreme Court has done? Supreme Court with this amendment has literally asked president not to take direction from the senior cabinet and prime minister, but to take it from prime minister, LOP, and CGI himself. Now, now the problem is that no, the previous question, judicial overreach. Now it is extending into such a level that it is giving a chance for anarchy in this country. And I will give you a certain example. A few weeks back, there was a PIL in Supreme Court. Now, because today's order is also an outcome of a PIL. Few weeks back, there was a PIL in Supreme Court seeking for a equal marriage. This 21 years for both boy and girl, and to remove that age difference. And Supreme Court has said to the petitioner Ashwini Upadhyay ji that no, we cannot do this, because if we remove that 18, then there will be zero age. So anyone can marry at any age. And being the Supreme Court, we cannot ask for any specific law or any specific criteria. But now today, Supreme Court has actually taken a U-turn and said, no, we can do that, and we are doing it. So this shows that Supreme Court is not following a particular set of principles, and that is problematic. Uh, One more point, across the globe, I don't think any other judicial system is so strong as compared to India. uh, a legislation passed by both houses of this country, including Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, with full majority, can be stopped, stayed, or quashed by a single judge of a High Court or Supreme Court. And that is not and even more problematic is the fact that that particular High Court judge or the Supreme Court judge is not appointed with a very fair scheme of having a very independent body, just like the Supreme Court want in the other structure of this constitution. So if, for example, election commission of this country is an independent statutory body, if, for example, CAG is an independent statutory body, then we need to also understand that judiciary is also an independent statutory body, and we as a citizen of this country expect that if Supreme Court is laying a line for other bodies, then it must start with their own houses. It cannot do that. No, we do not want your interference in my house, but I will interfere in every other house. Because if this will continue, tomorrow Supreme Court will say that I will also be the committee member to appoint the Prime Minister, the President of India, the CAG, the Army Chief, the Defense Force Head, the NAC, and all the governors I will appoint, or I will be in the committee to appoint. So I guess that will give us a very bad picture for the future.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.